Hello and welcome back to the LPL. We apologize for the brief delay, but everything has sorted itself out. I know we, stretched it out. We were lifting some weights, but we are now back and ready to cover the action because we're ready to go all the way in Chongqing. Now, of course, we are not in the away arena. We are here covering the action in our home base in Shanghai, but it is Snake versus FPX, and this is kind of like the matchup that I think everyone was waiting for tonight. We kind of had our warm-up, our teaser of the Sunning versus Vici, but this is the main course.
Because you have to remember, these teams were really close into playoffs. Snake was actually a playoff team, being kicked out by RNG, and of course, FPX ending the split with only one game away from WE's spot. So this is a very close potential playoff match.
Now, the thing is a lot of Western viewers, tuning into the LPL for the first time might not be familiar with a name like FPX. Now, Snake's been around since 2015 in the LPL. We call them the Team Liquid or the Curse of the LPL. Always fourth and never quite grabbing that international relevance. But FPX, kind of walk me through this team. You said they barely missed playoffs, but who are the key players or key names that I should be looking for?
So the big name for FPX, of course, is Cool in the mid lane. He joined past the midway point last split. The other carries you do have to know, of course, is Pulse's favorite in Gimgoon, kind of a creative top lane split pusher. And of course, LWX, the person we know as the Shotgun. A very unstable carry. He can show very good performances on his Tristana, his Kog'Maw, his hyper carries, but he can also just kind of throw you the game away. Like, very up and down.
So here's the thing. You talk about LWX. I know that Cool's kind of the focal feature that everyone's going to grab from. Cool, veteran of the LPL. He's been globally so many times. I think most people will remember him from his showdown against Faker when Faker absolutely smashed him. But for a long time, he was kind of the long-standing top-tier mid laner of the LPL. But LWX, we're in 8-11. We've seen mostly 80 carries, but our last series, there was no 80 carry in sight. Is this something that, works well for LWX, or do you think he's going to be exposed by this meta?
Honestly, I do think FPX is not in a good spot. It's particularly in this meta. They actually have kind of a hard time because their identity actually did revolve around scaling carries, especially for their split pushing top lane.
The Kog'Maws, the Tristanas, the split pushers like the Jaces.
The Fioras as well, a big carry pick for Gimgoon. So if you look at the pacing that this game likes to play at, it's not exactly this pace where a lot of things can end before the 20-minute mark. So I think coming into this split, it's more about how they train their personnel. We do talk about them having a new jungler in Xingyi, who is starting today, and also an LMS jungler in J-Team's Alex. They do want to find a little bit of stability on their roster. Remember, we did talk about 3 different carries, and the same term that we use for 3 of them are kind of, they're really good at some things, but you look at the rest of the game, it's kind of like 6s and 5s on the rest of the pentagram. So they are looking to kind of coalesce themselves, and this is the big thing about FPX. They didn't really have a clear identity last split. We talk about teams like EDG, mid-game tempo, siege to win. We talk about WE, late-game teamfight to win. But when you think about FPX, they're kind of all over the place. Sometimes LWX is good, sometimes Gimgoon is good. Mostly Cool has been consistent, but they don't really have a clear identity about how they finish games. Is it going to be teamfight? Is it going to be split push? Is it going to be catch? What is it? And that's what we're waiting to see from them.
And that could be something that Snake can exploit because they are kind of the elephant in the room in terms of this matchup. Welcome our Vietnamese fans. I know they like to tune in and check out their boy SOFM there in the jungler, but Snake, they struggled against OMG on Tuesday this week. Now they're looking at their second match for this week. What do they need to fix? You look at an 8-11 meta where everything's viable in the jungle. It's about funneling resources into them. You could have like a Master Yi and a Taric, and that seems like it would be perfect for SOFM, but why aren't they finding the immediate success that we want from Snake?
So definitely I agree with you. Snake is super creative as a team, but it's the same reason that they had problems in the last half of the split is because they're actually a very slow team to start. If you look at their gold stats, none of their lanes are actually ahead. They were the only playoff team to have this trait where 3 of their lanes were kind of falling behind, and Flandre was really the only one that was keeping their early game kind of ahead in the game. So in terms of the pacing issue, I think Snake is one of those teams that actually been hit the hardest. They like to play scaling in terms of their top lane and also in their mid lane as well. So that's a big aspect that they need to catch up with the rest of the meta.
So correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Snake actually had one of the second slowest average game time of any team in the LPL. Yep. So if we're in a meta that's playing early game, Snake have never been suited for this. Now, if you had to pinpoint kind of where their laning problems are, you have a brand new mid laner in Guoguo who's still trying to build up that synergy, and then you have Crystal and formerly Hude in that support position, and he's actually starting for ADC position tonight. So the bot lane for Snake has had a huge question mark over this. Is this going to be a series where FPX just blow Snake out of the water in the lane phase?
I actually think that's quite possible because we heard FPX talking about their player Chris. This is their new star player. He's been doing incredibly well in rank, sitting at 4th place in Korea for a while, and he's also an incredibly aggressive player. When we think about Chris, we think about stuff like Leona Tristana, which they used to play in a kill lane towards the bottom side. So I think that will be a big measure where they try to challenge Hoodia, who's stepping up on the ADC role. We've never seen him do that before, and I actually do want to mention this because this is the first time we are going to see in this meta where we might see players actually take breaks and try to perfect certain champions and then come back and play them in off roles. That's an incredibly exciting thing.
This actually was a topic that was brought up on both the Dive and Euphoria, this idea that, you know, where you're not really going to have a marksman player, that you're just going to have a bot lane player, and then suddenly, you know, I think even Pulse mentioned it, if you have, which LPL teams do, you know, 10 people sitting on the bench behind you, then suddenly you're grabbing maybe 3 top lane players and putting them on your roster because we're playing these bruiser champions.
Yeah. And I think most people would agree Hoodia has shown a higher mechanical proficiency than actually their AD carry Crystal. He's great on Tahm Kench, he's shown a lot on Shen, and he is their main initiation on the team. So I'm really excited how he's going to fill that role now that you could play a lot of bruisers there.
And it's also not even just Hoodia, it was also Crystal. Crystal was an ADC, swapped over into support, back onto ADC. Obviously, they've been trying to groom this young prodigy and Light to kind of step up, but obviously not finding the stage time ready there. So looking at how Snake as an innovative team, as they're starting to role swap, do you expect something crazy to come out? Like, are Snake the type of team that are going to go for the Morgana Shyvanas, or are they going to stick pretty standard?
I actually think they might try some new things, especially in the bot lane. Like you said, they're not playing any more ADCs. They do recognize their problem in terms of their game pacing. But what I want to really hammer down on is I want to see them do what make them successful, because Snake is a team that has a very specific teamfight style, and that's what really made them into a playoff team despite the slow type of pacing.
But do you think that Snake can even get to the team fight? So, like,
Yeah.
Here's the thing. All night we've been talking about this is the meat grinder meta, that this is basically decided by 1 or 2 team fights, no longer the 4 or 5, because the late game scaling options have just been removed. You know, no changing in crit itemization, no late game insurance policy because you don't have a hyper scaling ADC. You know, this is no longer the RNG Uzi metas. These are the Sunings and the Invictus Gaming and the Lane Kingdoms, which is something that Snake have failed on. But if Snake's greatest strength is this flanking team fight style, is there even a world where Snake get to that point, or are they going to have to completely reinvent themselves?
Well, first off, they need a stable split pusher to actually make it work, which is something they didn't have in the past, but could still make it work just because of like the game pacing and towers going down slower. They could find those opportunities where they actually gave up objectives for big team fights. But that really doesn't happen in this meta anymore. People win lanes, they snowball your lane, they take your towers incredibly fast, and in order to get into that big team fight where you're simultaneously piling in on people, it's much harder to do. People are more grouped up now. You're going to run into more 5v5s into that scenario. So for me, it's really about, okay, so first off, if you want to get to that team fight, you need to get the split push down first. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on Flandre. And he's the person I really want to see step up. He can't play the purely scaling game where Sofim doesn't really go to his lane and leaves him alone for him to scale up on something like Gangplank or Shen for the late game. Instead, they actually need to treat him as a proper carry, groom him, grow him up, get the split push, and then move in the team fight that they're so good on. I think that's the way forward for Snake. But of course, we don't know how good Hoodia is going to be. That could be the big X factor for them.
So you're saying for Snake's win conditions that you want to see Flandre step up, be more of that carry role. He does have a background that he used to be kind of a Fizz, Aurelia, one-trick style champion, so he can definitely do it. The first guy who ever played the Smite teleport top lane. Snake have innovated a lot over the course of the LPL. Now for FPX on the other side, we're talking a lot about the bot lane. So is this a matchup where Snake should have the strong side of the map if they choose to play that way, and FPX are playing towards their bottom side, bouncing between Cool and LWX?
So going in blind, I do kind of give FPX the lead in terms of the bottom lane. Of course, we haven't really seen Hoodia play, so if we haven't seen it, I give it to Cool. I have to give you to LWX and Chris for now, because they are known for being a kill type of lane. They want to get, they want to start snowballing things down there. What we haven't seen for Snake is, can they actually play into the top lane and really dominate and make it that side? Because like we were saying, and Flandre was saying this as well, he picked mainly for the team fight. He would take the Vladimir into the Gnar. He was going to lose his lane. There's no question about that. He was going to take his Gangplank into the tanks. He really wouldn't push out and have Sofim play around him. But this is the meta where I actually think that if you want to be a carry, you have to start very early on and really invest in your jungle resources.
I also feel in the 8-11 meta that I mean, we say this all the time. There's a reason why when League of Legends was created that the lane shaped the way that they did. Initially,
The
if you
EU
go
meta.
exactly when you go all the way back, it used to be that we would send Ashe towards the mid lane
Yeah.
because people prioritize getting the EX or the solo EXP so she could have the ult and then throw it. But it's having the duo bot lane. Like, why are two people in the bot lane? It's because there's more resources, there's more objectives. The dragon was down there. The tower now has become easier to take. It's easier to funnel those resources. And I feel like on 8-11, it's still the bot lane is the most valuable spot. Yes,
Definitely.
the scuttle crab can change where it's spawning, but you're still about the dragon, you're still about the tower. This meta seems so resource dependent because there's so much more gold kind of funneled onto the map in things like the crab.
So make no mistake, I feel like top lane has decreased in value in terms of experience because you and decreased in value because you can't snowball as hard into the top lane. And bot lane is definitely there, but of course Snake's most accomplished player is in the top lane. That's why I'm saying that's where they should go.
Why do you think
But I
that they
agree with you.
can't snowball as hard in top lane? Is it the itemization changes? Is it the matchup changes? Because it feels like, again, I'm not a top lane main. You're the top lane connoisseur. That there's so many more champions to play in the top lane. So whereas usually matchups used to be kind of like this Trinity rock paper scissors, it's now like a pentagram. Like there's 20 million champions everywhere.
Well, there's a couple different reasons. The first one is I think that jungle pressure is actually very hard to avoid in the top lane. You can't actually play as aggressive. And if you look at the champion picks right now, we don't actually see a lot of those like Jax's, Aurelias going to the top. They're actually very easy to prone to getting killed in terms of the top lane. If you look at the champions that are actually dominating the meta in terms of their being play rates, they're actually mainly engaged champions that you don't really throw resources at. We're talking about Singed, we're talking about Ornn, we're talking about Mundo. And these picks all have like this similar theme in them that they're there to kind of engage for their team, so you can just leave them be. And I think that's a big thing about just jungle patterns in general. If you look at what happened in LCK when top lanes try to play aggressive, the level 2 gank comes out instantly. And the reason the level 2 gank is so good right now is because when you go back to your own jungle, there's not a level 3 jungle sitting in your jungle waiting for you. That was always the case in the past, and that's not really true anymore. And if you look at how bot lanes are starting, the majority of junglers are actually starting topside after the MSI
Level 1 invade meta.
Level 1 invade, exactly. So I think that has actually limited how aggressive you can play the early top lane, and that's kind of limiting the champion pool there and forcing them onto kind of more engaged state.
And so these assassins or these bruisers are more than bleeding into the mid lane because they're still incredibly potent because they have such strong early game stats, like base level stats, as well as such strong initial itemization. So then I have to say, what is the blind pickable bruiser champion? Because right now it feels like in the LPL and even a little bit in the LCK, it seems like Vladimir is kind of this continuously cropping up. You know, you grab him because he can flex into, 4 different positions. But for the longest time, viewers used to have this association with Vladimir. The late game scaling champion. It takes Vladimir a very long time to grab his whole itemization to really stack himself up. So why is it now that Vladimir has kind of reached this breaking point where is it just the flex opportunity? Is it how they're building him different in items? Is it the matchup? Trinity changing where he just has better matchups now? Like, what is it about Vladimir that makes him so safe?
So, first of all, Vladimir actually is being played in the bot lane quite often, and the big reason for that is he has very early power spikes. If you go to the bot lane, you're not so much concerned about your experience points, you're more concerned about getting items. And the way typically people view mages is that, okay, you're sitting down, you're sharing your experience with a support, so that must be a bad thing in terms of your damage. Most of your damage comes from level. That doesn't really work for Vladimir because he actually gets his items like the Proto Belt and also like Spellbinders or the Reverie quite early on, and that allows him to kind of make that foothold in the meta. And early picking him is just safe because you can actually do him mid, you can do him bot, and you can do him top. I don't think he's actually particularly good in terms of the top lane, but it's just the flexibility, like you mentioned, that's putting him in that blind pickable spot.
Does that make him S tier? Because I know when we were ranking Vladimir, we actually put him firmly in the A tier, and we put our S tier champions like the Mundos and the Singed and the Ornns.
I think overall, yes, you do give him kind of like an S tier grade. He's really good in terms of, I think, bot lane even more so than the top lane. But in purely of the top lane, I don't think he's like a blind pickable champion where you're like, okay, I'm happy to have this champion.
I love how you're like still so funneled in on top lane. I just mean like
I'm a top lane main. That's the way. That's the lens I view the world, man.
Okay, but so we've got our Vladimir. Is there any other champion that you would grab hold of in terms of like the blind pickable? I know that Raz and I landed on Zoe. We felt was the blind pickable mid lane mage simply because her wave clear coming in, her control for early access into Scuttle, the fact that for me personally, I feel like this meta is played so much around structures, and so poke champions naturally are going to be quite viable. Baron is not
Easy
easier
to
to,
take.
well,
It's easier.
yeah, but you have more access to it early on, and she plays so well around the choke points around Baron or approaching any sort of monster objectives.
So you're asking me about blind pickable champions,
Yes.
basically. Okay, just go back all the way there. I think jungler is probably the strongest role right now. In terms of like blind pickable champions, you can take the Graves early on. Even if you run into Xin
Feels
Zhao,
like
I don't think it's
Camille's
that
been the
bad.
priority, though.
Yeah, Camille's definitely very high priority because she has more lockdown in terms of like her ganking patterns.
So build me the perfect S tier champion in every single position. Boom, top.
Oh,
What is it?
okay. Top, I would go for Singe. I think he gives you just way too much pick, and he can control Scuttle easily. For jungle, I really like Graves. I know Nocturne's been cropping up quite often as well, but late game he's not as good. You do need to finish your games quite early. And mid game, I would go for Zoe as well, just because blind pickable snowball potential, very short game time in the meta. And for ADCs, this is the interesting one, because what we're seeing across the globe is that traditional ADCs still have the higher win rate. When it comes to that big team fights,
At least in the LPL.
yeah, in the LPL, in the LCK as well.
Yeah,
That's really important.
yes, but they've also played more bruiser games than we have. I feel like I agree with how the statistic is lining up, but I feel like the LPL has really skewed that statistic because we keep playing ADCs.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
if we've got 18 games on record and 16 of them have had ADCs in them, then I think their win rate's probably going to be pretty high.
But for ADCs, I actually think there's like a plethora of champions. We talk about it's more itemization focus. You're talking about Storm Razors or Essence Reaver. If you don't build those two, you're not really in the meta. So Draven, Lucian, Kog'Maw. And I think Kog'Maw's the really interesting one because Kog'Maw is a champion that a lot of LPL teams do praise quite highly. You think about WE, you think about LWX, for instance. They are famed for their Kog'Maw. Of course, SMLZ, that's the one I was trying to get at. And the cool thing is about the second item, Essence Reaver, where Kog'Maw has such easy access to his ult.
The uptime on his W.
Yes, he can keep his W up all the time. And if you think about it, he's actually pretty good at keeping himself at a safe distance through range and through his E, of course. So Kog'Maw is one of those sleeper picks that I feel like has a chance to really move the meta back into the ADC carry position. Because he's so effective.
Is this only a meta that would then live in the LPL? Because I do agree with you. I think every single region, they make their own metas, but a lot of the time is also because you have to understand that working as a coach, which I believe both of us have experience working back there, like the players are the holy grail. They are the source of all information. That's how everything is dictated. And so if a player has a signature pick, like the Kog'Maw, obviously you're still going to try to build metas around the pick because they're always going to go back to it and use that experience. So would Kog'Maw only be viable in the LPL simply because we have so many Kog'Maw players?
I would say so, yes. I believe that it will be more viable in the LPL anywhere else. It's not really a solo queue pick you see that much. The amount of protection needed in this meta is just way too damn high, so people aren't playing it in a solo queue environment, but we have been seeing it in the LPL already. SMLZ, of course, the first one to go back onto that champion that made him famous. And there's this interesting discussion where we see game time actually drag on longer in the same patch. And the reason for that is with all these melee champions running around, people are figuring out if you don't contest team fights as much, they actually can't see
your high ground.
Yeah, they can't see your high ground. Like we've been seeing the longest game we had all week, 47 minutes. That nobody predicted there would be a 47 minutes game when you started the season. The games progressively grow longer and players are more aware of how you can stall it out. And the question is, if you stall it out long enough, 80s in this patch, in the late game, they actually do more damage than they did before.
I actually believe Freak also released a video recently that went onto Reddit and actually broke down the math, and that is correct, that technically 80 carries, if you get to that point in the game, can do more damage than they've ever done before. The problem is that, like you're saying, teams don't know how to play this meta, they're contesting everything, and then because it's so snowball-oriented, you make one or two mistakes and suddenly the game runs away from you.
So I'm like, as much as people don't want to see this meta kind of shift away from killing marksmen, I would say, I actually want to see this meta stay for a while. I think it has a lot of opportunity to actually grow, like within a meta. Something like a StarCraft. It's been around 10 years, never patched, and still works as a functioning game. And deep metas are incredibly interesting. If you think about Worlds, MSI, and Okay, not S5, but S6 and 7.
You had to like really think about it. You're like, season 5, not a great meta.
But the meta actually changed week by week, and people figured out more new things, and that's where I actually think the meta will be going. Like, if this meta stays stable, even though I'm not going to say it's perfect by any means, I still think marksmen are too weak. But if you give it 2 weeks, it's going to look very different than it will now.
I do agree. I think the meta will stabilize. Now, that said, I do want to give a quick update. There has been another audio issue from Chongqing, so we are just waiting for that to sort itself out. In the meantime, though, we are going to go ahead and throw over to RNG's MSI mic check, so please enjoy. And I was fortunate enough to actually be there. It's a funny story, actually. As that crazy Kaiser play came in, when Uzi went in and they grabbed Prey, locked him down, and the team fight came through, I actually smashed my hand onto the desk because I was screaming, "Kill them!" End it in the game. And Papa Smithy was right next to me when it happened. So I'm sure that there's a video. I know that the fans were, we were like right on the analyst desk, but for like the day all after MSI, I just had this giant like RNG bruise victory of like my entire hand from just being like, "Kill them! End the game! Do it!"
Get a tattoo. I was at a restaurant as well, and I was actually shedding tears. My girlfriend was next to me. He's like, why are you crying all of a sudden? It's like, Uzi! I was there on Mother's Days as well, spending a late dinner with my mom, and like I wasn't paying attention to her at all, which was the really sad thing. I'm sorry, Mom, I love you. And I was just watching the rise of Flash Wolves through that tournament. And I was like,
I know it was a bittersweet victory. You had Flash Wolves, you had the LPL actually winning, you had Karza not only lifting now he owns 2 titles in the LMS as well as the LPL and his MSI international title. Like
I believe only Imp has that qualification for like winning 2 titles in different regions. Huni?
Huni has LCK. Ooh, does he have an NALCS?
No, he doesn't have NA. He's actually failed in NA. He's got EU. Yeah.
Oh man, Huni could be the triple crown wearer. That's a title
better work,
right
Echo
there.
Fox.
but we were actually just discussing this. Looking at that series and from like a technical standpoint, Uzi was the one who got MSI or the MVP, which I don't think we were ever going to give it to anyone else. But looking back at that, Karsa had probably the best series of his career. Let Me had the best series of his career. Like, there were so many different MVPs that could have gone to.
Yeah, definitely. So, for me, one of the big ones definitely was Karsa. He actually improved his play from the LMS. If you were talking about LMS Karsa, he wasn't at that level. And one of the big things was that I actually think this is a huge shift in terms of positional power, where you do see Korea kind of lacking in that jungle talent. So
that's an inflammatory statement.
It is, but I do think it's true. I wholeheartedly do believe it is true. And if you listen to the mic checks that RNG themselves released, you could hear Karsa talking about how he's pathing against Peanut. And one of the really interesting things I think he did was that he actually forgoed his own camps to keep track of Peanut. When RNG was winning in the bot lane, he skipped 2 of his own camps. He went into Peanut's jungle a level behind. Now, that's a very difficult thing to do. Most junglers will not try that against Peanut, and kept track of him just like placing wards here and there. And afterwards, you could hear Karsa saying that Peanut's no longer farming. He's stuck in the bot lane. He's just given up on farming. I'm going to go farm up a storm now. And that's how he got a 2-level lead over King Zone's Peanut. And it's just really interesting because you have these two steps of things happening. One is that there's a lane that can smash King Zone hard enough, and another, it's a jungle who has a mechanical prowess to go in and contest Peanut, but also at the same time outsmart him when he knows that he's like dragged down to somewhere.
No, the thing is that a lot of international viewers still aren't, they're not willing to let go of the LCK. And we totally understand. We're not going to come out here and be like, oh, of course. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Worlds is the ultimate tournament. You cannot be champions until you hold that title. But I also do think that it is, at some point people do need to look in the mirror that it's not just, how to say this?
Korea isn't good. Like, it isn't one big holistic piece. It fractures. It has a top part. It has a bottom part.
It's also, it almost cheats Korea of its greatness.
Yes.
Just to assume that it's great because it's Korea. Like, it's one thing to know that Faker is the greatest. It's another thing to identify why Faker is the greatest. And I feel like a lot of the community has lost sight of that conversation. And so that's why, to me, just the analysis feels stale. Like, Korea are going to win because they're going to win. And then this is how you get into these situations where, it's a controversial statement to say that the LCK doesn't have the greatest X in every single position. When I don't think they've had the greatest X in every position for a lot of positions for a long time now.
For a long time is an interesting question, but definitely now you can see the best players are clear. Some of the best positions are clearly in LPL, not in Korea. And I think that's a kind of a breakthrough where people even start to realize that and try to recognize that. I was watching like the 2016 top 20 players. They put like 4 Longzhu players in the top 6. That was just, nobody blinked an eye. I was like, oh yeah, that's probably right.
Every single list that comes out, it's always dominated by the Korean players because they are so good. But it's not even just the the migration into the LPL. It's also into things like the LCS. I think losing Huni was actually a huge blow to a lot of the talent that LCK lost. And it used to be that LCK had this reputation that they would just recreate the new talent. Now you have, stars cropping up like UCal in that mid lane, taking over for Palm. But you also have kind of these stallouts in, people like Blossom. It's not quite to the same caliber where it feels like, you look at the Afrika Freaks and it's Spirit that's popping off. That guy's been there forever. Whereas in the LPL, you're starting to see more of these unknown, Xiao Al as the next big coming of talent.
I actually think it's going back to how strong a region is from its fundamentals. Like, China will always dominate in this era because it just has so many people. Now, Korea was really strong at the early front because a lot of their players are actually accumulated over the years where they didn't even have a server. They actually started on North America. And this is one of those insight I have, like, coming from the LMS. The reason a team from GPL was able to win World Season 2 was not because they were, like, magically good at the game.
They played on the North American server.
They played on the North American. Like, the
Picture
balls
of
was
a
on
goose.
CLG. They were on for a long while, and those things do actually matter to overall. And I think China is going to slowly win over that edge with having more players, with having more investment to it. And I believe you said it at MSI as well, like 2020, when we're fully gone into the franchising mode, where we have all of our teams fleshed out. I think that's the goal where you really start seeing LPL start taking champions.
I believe it's 3 years, I think, is what we gave them. 3 years until the LPL is the strongest region in the world, and simply because of resources. And again, it's not this idea that, the LCK and the LMS and LCS aren't also increasing the resources. You see the franchising happening in Europe, you see franchising happening in NA.
It's the speed difference.
It's the speed difference. Yeah. It's the amount of growth that's happening. It's the fact that every single year the LPL is adding 2 more teams, that they have over 20 teams in their league development league, that they have the TGA tournaments underneath. It's just happening so much faster than anywhere else.
And these teams are taking away from Korean players as well as we speak. So that's a big issue that I see happening. It's happening with the LMS kind of as well. It's like
we keep grabbing LMS junglers left and right.
To be honest, you guys probably only need to take Mountain and Karsa. That's pretty much all you need.
But now we also got Alex, so it's all good. Are you coming and joining us,
okay.
Raz?
Come in, Raz. Come in, Raz.
I know the producers like stay on the close shot. So I see that again, if you haven't noticed, we're waiting for the Chongqing match to start between Snake and FPX. Unfortunately, there is an audio delay, and so to serenade your audio, I don't know how to do the segue, we've brought over the lovely Barinto Raz Muhammad.
Hey, let me see if I can get this working. You guys can hear me?
That's mine, actually.
That's yours? I mean, we have a problem already.
Would you like me to crank you up, sir?
Yeah, get me in there.
Tell me when to stop.
Can you hear me?
No, I can definitely hear you.
Oh, damn, then okay, we're good. I just can't hear myself,
You're
but I don't really
normally a
care
bit
about myself. I think
taller.
we're fine. I'm good as a short human being, thank you very much.
All right.
The
I can
moment
make
I
you
hear
feel
you
more
talking about LMS junglers, thank you, there we go. I had to walk in because I was like, we're done with this biased bullshit. I can't handle it.
Whoa!
I'm not biased. So there's 2 good ones. You've got them. How's that biased?
Oh yeah, We'll see if we see. Like the funniest thing about this is, remember, FPX is gonna be coming up, and they just signed Alex as well.
Yeah.
So
Do you
they
want
did-
to talk about it?
Well,
It is
yeah,
signing your J
give me
team
the
fella.
breakdown. I believe we saw Alex at Rift Rivals, actually, was the last time
Yeah.
we got a view
That's
of him.
true.
Formerly of J Team, if you guys don't keep up with the LMS, and I know you don't keep up with the LMS,
She's
it
calling
was...
you out.
It's just honest.
All
Sorry, Clement. J Team used to rock over the LMS. It was kind of like the Flash Wolves, AHQ. They were the top dogs. They were going back and forth. Everyone knows their teams because they always show up internationally. Then suddenly, boom, J Team, owned by the superstar
Jay Chow?
Jay Chow, comes in. The team smashes everyone.
Yep.
Seems to have all these superstars. It's all figured out. And then right before the finish line, crash and burn and never really make their big international performance outside Rift Rivals, and it still wasn't great there.
Yeah. So, J Team it's a funny team. Are
they funny?
Is it funny?
They're funny
Clement?
in terms of their fate, but we actually have one of the big parts of J Team here in the LPL as well, in Coach Sim, who is coaching Suning Gaming, and I think it's really interesting in the parallels you see to them. Like when he's in trouble, he turns back to the Karma pick, or he's growing up with a superstar mid laner once again and trying to get him through playoffs, trying to get him onto that international stage. And it just feels like karma, because if you don't go past some levels in your life, you're going to get stuck in that level forever.
Does that mean Suning are going to blow up right before playoffs?
Okay.
Hey, man, I didn't say that, man.
I'm
Wait a
trying to
second.
find correlations. Back to Alex. Raz, tell me who Alex is.
So Alex is like, and you can correct me if I'm
Yeah.
right, because it comes down to the fact, because like I trust your assertion on LMS junglers.
You
so
realize
I
you said
got
correct
you.
me if I'm right.
I realized that. I was going
Agree
to
with
let
me
it
if
go
I'm
with
right.
it.
Agree with me if I'm right.
Okay.
So for me, it comes down to the fact that he's a high mechanical jungler.
Definitely.
But the issue comes down to a lot of the decisions that he makes,
Yep.
right? So poor decisions, but high mechanics. The reason why it's funny to me is it because it seems like if he comes in
found
as a
Pepper.
replacement, it's literally Pepper.
They found
So
a Pepper.
that's what it comes down to, because remember, the team lost Pepper, which was a major shot caller for them, because the team had Pepper and Crisp. We can hear them every time in Spring Split.
One of
that
the loudest teams in the LPL.
very damn loud. Louder than the Jingdong guy. So it's awesome that it seems like they're checking their options here. That they're like, okay, Pepper moved on to WE, greener pastures, but you know what? Revenge. Let's get someone exactly like Pepper. But, and you can, I don't know if you agree with me here, and we're gonna clash on this because I'm ready to fight.
I'm ready to
okay,
separate
here we
it.
go.
I think even though they're holding on to their options, I think Shinyi is going to come up as the better jungler for the team, because Shinyi is and you'll remember him from old Jingdong when they had Kabe in the top lane, and for the mid lane they had Doinbi.
Take a seat.
Let's go. Oh, okay, let's go.
Oh,
Let's go.
okay.
So for me, Shinyi, even though at the time was perceived as an average jungler, he was flanked by stars. Yes, and I know the camera's not showing you, but you're giving me faces right now. Don't give me those faces. He was flanked by stars, and he was a facilitator for them. Put down proper wards, recognized his role, and I know you're trying to talk, but this is why he needs to come into this team and really facilitate Gimgoon, facilitate Cool, and LWX. You can't have 4 stars on a team because they're too hot-headed and they're too random.
But the thing is you're using words like facilitators. Shinyi, his signature play was to lock in Kha'Zix and then to run into the enemy jungle when his mid lane was in base and die for free. What is facilitating about
All right,
that,
those
Raz?
games would happen, but this was when he first started out. Now, I give rookies their due. I give rookies their due.
I love you both. I just want
You're
to
not-
tell you that.
You're not going to have a
Do you wanna
rookie
hug it
player
out?
come onto the stage, on a major stage, and then start performing incredibly well. So for me, as he grew...
There's
and
one thing
remember-
about performing incredibly well, and then there's another one about intentionally feeding in
Okay,
a
okay,
couple
okay,
of games.
but
I
Shinyi-
wasn't in the LPL then.
Shinyi
Weeks-
was benched for a reason. I agree with you that he did make growth,
Yes.
and he hasn't been given his due diligence in terms of a team to invest him for him to grow on. So I'm excited that it got picked up by another organization. But to just come straight out of the gate swinging and say Shinyi is the better jungler over Alex.
Okay.
I
In
have a
terms
problem
of
with.
skill, I'm gonna say Alex. But remember, and also in terms of skill, I'm going to say Pepper. But there's enough skill on a team, right? The issue with FPX is that they were too reliant on skill. They were too reliant on individuals, and so when it came down to making proper plays and setting up for those plays, it didn't happen. There's no setup. And Shinyi is a jungler who focused on that because obviously he's making up for the fact that he's flanked or surrounded by incredibly talented junglers, and he wouldn't be able to keep up. So that's why when it comes to FPX, I need to see him understand his role. I see your hands up. I'm going to disregard it.
My hands are up as well. Are you
Wait,
gonna disregard
before
me?
we go,
Okay,
before
maybe
I
I'll
call
let-
in
okay,
Clement, I do have
Let
to.
this man talk.
I have to remind everyone first. The reason why we're in visit with Raz is what I think I'm going to call this segment is because there's still a technical delay over in Chongqing. We're in our Shanghai arena. We will get to the games as soon as they start. But for now, Clement serenaded me.
All right, so I have never bought the argument that you take a player with lesser skill but with more control, and he's gonna grow up someday and become like the ultimate.
Brains, you can't teach mechanics.
Experience is the
Yeah,
name of the
yeah,
game, and I
that's-
think he lacked experience is my point.
Yeah, and I agree with you that I think Shingy's probably gonna be a better jungler than Alex from what I've seen on him.
Okay.
Alex wasn't the starting jungler on Jame Team from a long time as well, and there's a good reason for that. Yes, he's Korean, 600 points. He used to be one of the best Lee Sins, but when it comes down to working with people, it's more about communication, and that does take personality. That does take a lot more experience working with your teammates, and that's where I think Shingy might have an edge in terms of that.
And ultimately, what I
But
really want
I
out of
still
FPX...
think you want to invest in a good mechanical player for the future.
all
Like
right,
I never bought the
understand.
argument you want to buy someone who's like worse mechanically, but then, you know,
Well, here's the thing. For
Okay.
this team specifically, remember we already talked about the fact that they had multiple stars, or at least multiple incredibly talented players. The problem when Pepper was on the team, and even though Pepper was a strong voice for them, early on in the games, Gimgoon would have a tough time every time. It felt like Pepper and Gimgoon was just a bad duo. They wouldn't work well together, and oftentimes Gimgoon was falling behind in lanes, not because they were picking poor lanes, just because of that.
That guy was crazy.
It was pretty. He was willing to go into
Like,
some pretty rough
let's
lanes.
be honest, Kim Goon also put himself in some pretty shit situations because he's
That's
just
fair.
kind of crazy.
That's fair. But a lot of the times it'd just be him getting dived multiple times, even though Pepper was in the area, because there was poor communication between the two, or it was him showing him, or at least Pepper showing himself in an early mid lane gank. It would just happen really early on in the split, and it never really improved. It was just more so, okay, Gimgoon, I'll leave you to your own. You're gonna have deficits in the lane, but as long as you come into team fights, we're just fine. And it was a nice band-aid, but they needed more than just a band-aid. So hopefully Shinyi is that. And if Alex comes through, I don't know what you were about to say, but if Alex comes through and does the exact same thing, they need those options, but I do have faith in Shinyi.
I'm just curious how you see the perfect combination between Shingy and Gimgoon in the top lane. Is he going to try to like give him the resources and snowball him completely, or is he going to be kind of like an inhibitor where he tells him don't do dumb shit and like pull him back? Like what kind of relationship do you
Wait.
want for those two?
Doesn't even matter what the relationship between Shinyi and Gimgoon is. Like, this team is all about cool. You want to talk about, like, the Jiminy Cricket of the team. It's cool in
I
the
agree with
mid lane
that,
that's going to be saying,
Yeah.
stop feeding, don't do this, come here.
Well, ultimately, I see this team being very similar to the old Jingdong with Duanbi and Kabe. Because for me, it seems like this team is going to be centered around Cool. Cool is the most consistent player, and when they brought him onto the team, it was the same Cool that we saw when he was playing for Newbie. So it was incredible skill. I'm still afraid of the fact that he's playing at this level at this point in his career. But if you can play through mid, then you can look to rotate that to top side for Gimgoon when he's playing his Kleds. Not going to happen in this meta, but he has a great champion pool. I see your face. You can go bottom lane. You have
I see
LWX
it.
there.
I'm ignoring it.
So they do have options. They just need focus, and I think Shinyi and Cool will be that focus for the team.
And I do want, as you guys watch FPX games, just for the viewers, watch Cool's camera. Anytime the camera is on Cool, just watch how he is talking to the team. Again, we kind of talk about what's cool about being in the venue is that just behind us, we basically have the best seats in the house. You can hear the players. Like for Vici and Suning, we can hear the players screaming. When FPX are playing, they're a very loud team, and Cool is one of the loudest members. Watching him go off on team fights, even if he doesn't appear like he's doing anything, he's very clearly the shot caller. There's a couple of mic checks that have been released that really reveal kind of the inner workings, and he's just super entertaining and very interesting to watch and kind of see or peek behind the curtain and what's happening with a professional team.
And this is what makes this interesting, because for the most part, we have FPX in the same position as a team. We've discussed it, and we've had them in the same position as comparatively to the last split. But they feel like a wild card team because this change that they've had really rocks their communication. Because near the end of the split, they did have 3 voices. Cool was the 3rd voice that he came through, and he really added that veteranship. Now you lose Pepper. What does that actually look like now? Does Cool have a much larger voice because now he's had time to really scrim with the team, like have
he came in
added
mid-split.
Exactly. Yeah. So the added responsibilities now is a real thing because he was coming in before. Maybe he didn't even know how long he was going to be there. Maybe it's just one split, and then he can look back at what he can do or what his options are. But now he's looking to this next split, being like, okay, I am the mid laner for this team for the foreseeable future. So if that's going to be the case, then it could just be a communication between him and Crisp, and that could really change this team dramatically.
Okay, we're going to play a game. It's called Controversial Statements.
I don't like this game already.
This is a perfect game. I'm going to say a controversial statement. You guys are going to tell me true or false and then explain.
All right.
Do FPX have a higher... No, excuse me. Controversial statement.
Uh-oh.
FPX have a higher skill ceiling than Snake Esports.
Woo!
There's a timer on this, guys.
What's the timer? You need to like do a countdown for me.
1.
And is it just like, agree or
2.
disagree? Like, do I have to agree with you or disagree with you?
You can... Oh, those are only 2 options. Like, look at this guy.
I mean,
he's like,
we're talking
this
about
is
a
against
game.
your
Brand,
question.
man.
Wait a
Can I
minute.
agree or disagree?
We're talking about a game, dude. I was like, do you want me to just make a controversial statement? But
No,
I was...
I make the controversial statement.
Okay.
You agree or disagree, and then you tell me why. So, Raz, FPX have a higher skill ceiling than Snake Esports.
I'll say true. A lot of it comes down to the fact, and here's the real facts about this. Snake Esports have a phenomenal top side of the map. We've talked about their top side for ever since they came into the league, but ultimately the biggest issue has been their bot side of the map. It's been the fact that Udia is a great support. They're putting in Maestro now. That's an intangible. We don't know. We haven't seen too much of him. But Crystal has fallen to many 80 carries in the split. There's a lot of competition here, but that he's shown himself to be the weakness. And Guoguo has been a similar factor. Now, they've been gated by that and constant miscommunication.
I have to cut you off. I'm sorry, Raz, as we just got into our favorite game, because I've got great news, everyone. The issue has been resolved. So they are currently in a commercial break. As soon as they come back, they're going to go into the game, which means that we need to throw to a toss, because Raz, you need to get back over there and cast, because Chongqing's matches is ready to go. It's Snake Esports versus FPX, and we're going to prove if FPX do have the higher skill ceiling.
Here we go.
Get off my desk.
Get out of here. I'm good. Let's go. I don't need to talk to you.
When I get old, I remember this day when we scrolled and just felt okay with nothing that been done. No, nothing's really done today. Oh yeah, feeling breezy and easy. It's a beautiful day. And I'm gonna be just fine. Yeah. It's a beautiful day, and I'm gonna be just fine. When I get old and a million worries unfold, I will take this walk and do absolutely nothing, breathing in the loving life. 'Cause whatever will come, if you stand by me, I'm alright. And this life won't be such a fight if we're together, baby. Then the sun shines bright. Oh yeah, feeling breezy and easy. It's a beautiful day. And I'm gonna be just fine. Yeah. It's a beautiful day. And I'm gonna be
We did it! The countdown finally hit 0, Raz, and I finally get a chance to speak. It's no longer going back to Frostgoon and Clement. You're not joining them on the analyst desk. We're going straight to the shoutcast here, because we're about to go into the Snake Pit at the Chongqing Arena for the second match of today. It's going to be FPX taking on Snake Esports.
I get to be here again. That's hilarious. So you thought you could take the mic off of me. I'm just with you.
No, but you were over there. You were never here. This is the first time you're actually here at the casting desk.
That's true. That's true. We've been sitting here for a long time. The audience hasn't gotten to see us, so that's fine.
That's true.
That's
We have been sitting here for a while. You know, I saw you run over there. You got to have fun with Clement and Frostgoon. You were talking for a bit. I was like, you know what? I'm going to get some food. I grab my food, sit down, just about to eat. And I get told, you know what, we're going live. 3 minutes. I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, get your food out of here. I don't want to hear
Yeah,
that.
right. I'll
I don't
get it
wanna-
off the
yeah,
desk.
yeah,
It's
put
gone.
it off the desk. But yeah, it's awesome that we finally get to the cast, because this is the set that I've been looking forward to towards the most, because as I mentioned when we had our talk on the desk, a lot of it was a focus onto FPX.
Yep.
FPX was a team that this is the debut for them this split. We haven't seen them. And even though I say debut, people are like, wait a minute, it's all the same players except for literally one. But they also have a new coaching staff as well. They have Hachani as the coach, so that's a major factor of, well, what direction is he going to put them in? And a new jungler as well, and also a jungle backup. So a lot of it is still multiple question marks. And just remember, they were on an upward trend when they brought Cool in. So that's just more time that they get to scrim with him.
That's what I wanted to talk about as well, because although, you know, there's not too many changes on the FPX lineup, Cool only joined halfway through the split.
Yep.
They started to look good once he joined the roster, and now he's had the entire off-season to work with FPX, moving into their first match against Snake Esports, who didn't look too good against OMG earlier in the week. This is their chance to start new and perhaps break into the LPL for Summer Split, because we had high expectations for FPX in Spring Split.
Yes, we did. And so I think resetting those expectations are important, because when they had Bing, they started off with them. They had a 38% win ratio with Bing. And then you move on towards Cool, and this is when Cool just starts in. So this is just a fresh, I say, team with a very experienced player. 57% win ratio, so immediately a boost to the team.
We'll have to see how much of a boost it is actually going to be for FPX. They're up against Snake Esports, who unfortunately have lost their first game in the LPL against OMG early in the week. But this is music to my ears, Raz. Thank you to everyone that's been sticking around for this match.
God bless you.
We can finally hear Champion Select. We're getting into Champion Select for game number 1. The first 3 bans from FunPlus Phoenix have already come out. Nocturne, Master Yi, as well as Rise, going to be banned out by FPX. Snake taking away Lulu, Talia from the jungle, as well as Lucian.
A lot of jungle bans, very fair. Remember, Graves is still open, so if you're FPX, Xinyi might have to go towards that. Otherwise, Snake has their hands on it. So that's a lot of questions to me. Jungle picks are the major point of importance for me, just because SOFM, a lot of questions for me are, has he really meshed to the new jungle meta? Because the last time we saw him, he was still rocking the Sejuani.
We saw him play Sejuani, Olaf, as well as Skarner. Didn't really get any priority picks in the jungle when he was up against OMG. OMG also thought that he would pull up the Master Yi. That will be a strategy that Snake used in their match here, because that was also a ban in the first match. FPX think the exact same thing, but Snake have locked in, immediately showcasing what they're going to be playing today. Mordekaiser as well as Shen, their first 2 picks.
Now, the Shen is really scary for me, because that means whoever this carry is going to be, could be the AD carry, could be the jungler. They're going to get buffed up by this Shen. So a lot of playmaking potential there. And Snake is the team to utilize this Shen offensively as a split pusher with damage. Triforce is a big one for Flandre. Or they can utilize him to really get the ball rolling in the opposite side of the map.
I mean, they are the innovators, right, Raz? Frostgrim was talking about it on the desk earlier, bringing Smite into the top lane, one of the first teams to do so. We even saw them very heavily favoring the lane swap meta and bringing in SOFM, who had a completely different jungle style to majority of the junglers in the LPL. So they have been known to even innovate. We'll have to see what they're going to be able to do in their second match of the Summer Split. FPX, though, with these picks from Snake, Shen and Mordekaiser being picked up nice and early, with Olaf being their third, they got quite a few good priority picks here, Raz. Alistar, their first pick, with Sinjao as well as Zoe, their next 2.
So I already love what I see coming out of FPX. They're sticking to the meta. Zoe, we've mentioned this time and again, is the best blind pick mid laner if we're kind of having a conversation about Zoe versus maybe counter pick. So Irelia is still up and available. If you're FPX, ban the Irelia, and you should be very comfortable with the Zoe pick.
Well, I haven't seen the Irelia ban come out yet, but a couple of the bruisers that are similar to her role have been banned out here by Snake, as well as FPX. Aatrox and Yasuo will hit the bench. Cannon's being banned out by Snake. We've seen it being played a little bit more recently in the LPL. Final ban for FPX. Let's see what they target.
I think it should be. It's either going to be Vladimir or it's going to be the Aurelia. Now, Kennen is fantastic into Vladimir in the bottom lane, so they're just trying to round out possible poor matchups so they can pick it in towards that lane.
But it's not Gangplank. It's the final banner that comes out from FPX. We have seen Gangplank played this split mostly in the top lane, or actually all of it's been at the top lane, but it hasn't looked too good in the professional games have been played in. However, Darius will make another appearance here today, locked in for Snake.
Best thing about this meta, I have no damn clue where these champions are going. So that Shen could very easily be a support, because really go towards Maestro. So it could be a Shen Mordekaiser lane that doesn't sound awful to me, and the Darius can go top lane.
And that's what we've seen so far with the Shen picks in the current meta. Goes into the bottom lane as the support pick of choice. It could be Mordekaiser in the mid lane, which we've seen. And Olaf in the jungle trying to clear as fast as possible. Olaf does have a very good clear time in the jungle.
Yes.
And then potentially, Darius going wherever. We've seen him playing in the bot lane by Faker in the LCK. We've seen him played in the mid lane in the LPL, potentially moving into the top lane. The final two picks coming out from FPX. First is going to be Vladimir. Now hovering over the Jack, still talking about the Ornn earlier. Ornn still a very strong pick. That's the final pick for FPX.
So this is beautiful if you're Flandre, because at this point, you could take the Darius and you could take the Shen, and you'll be incredibly happy with that lane matchup. And so if you are SOFM, you play towards top side. Flandre is going to be pushing in. You know what? If he locks this in, even better for himself. SOFM should feel so incredibly free because he's not only clearing faster, but he has pushing lanes on the top side of the map to invade Sinyeon.
Man, I know everyone has their opinion about this meta, but I love it. Look at Snake's lineup, Raz.
Yep.
Tell me, does that not look beautiful or what? That is amazing. Not a single ranged champion for Snake.
Look, I love it. I know a whole lot of people, specifically coaches, let's say Hachani, for instance, from FPX, who's going to hate it? Who's going to despise it? He's going to look at this and be like, I don't want to deal with this. Why do I have to deal with this?
You can see Snake's coach. He's absolutely... He's incredibly happy about this draft for his team. Still smiley, talking with everyone on his roster. Everyone playing a melee champion on his squad. And it seems like here, as we talked about Hudia coming in as the substitute for Snake. Their final pick was going to be Singe, which means we should see Mordekaiser in the bottom lane, but it's not going to Hudia. He is a support player.
Yep.
Moving into the AD carry role, he's picking up Shen, and Maestro is going to be playing Mordekaiser.
And I remember that there's a lot of discussion about why Hudia is coming in, right? I know Snake has had these weird roster changes in the past, but this one makes sense because supports ideally have a larger champion pool that they've practiced on, a practice champion pool to the AD carries. This time around going to the Shen, he's played it in the past and now he has it for himself.
And we'll be able to go into this discussion deeper throughout the rest of the series, but it seems like that could be a possibility. Where now that a lot of AD carries are starting to get shifted out of League of Legends, if they don't get patched back in with a couple more patches, we don't see them played as often, there is the potential where teams can start throwing players into different roles from what we're used to, what is considered traditional, similar to what we saw in Season 1 for teams like Epic Gamers, where it wasn't about what role you played, it was about what champions you could play and where you could play them.
Yeah, that's a long-term discussion if this is to remain. But a short-term discussion is more so teams just have 10-man lineups. And if they're not finding success, then you can just say, I'm looking to someone else that isn't an AD carry. Snake have a much larger roster than what they're showing. So why not? Why not say, well, we're practicing with Hudia. We're just practicing with another player in this role to see if we can get it right.
We do get to see that Mordekaiser in the bottom lane paired up with Shen, being played by, theoretically, the support champion, the support player from Snake, with Shen being the AD carry in this situation. But let's get into Summoner's Rift. Game number 1, FPX taking on Snake Esports. You can hear the fans, Raz. 3 hours. That's the wait they've had to endure so far to get into this match. They're still there, still cheering as loud as they possibly can, not only for FunPlus Phoenix, but also the home crowd favorites of Snake Esports. That is the Snake pit that they're playing out of.
Yeah, music to my ears. I love the fact that when we're having discussions about home and away system, the best thing about the home system is that you really do have dedicated fans that come to your games time and time again. Snake fans have probably been the best at it. They have their own chants. They're ready to follow the team wherever they go.
We do get to check in to see where these champions are going to be moving around the different parts of the map, Raz. In the top lane, it is going to be that Singe against Ornn matchup. Bottom side of the map, we are going to have the Alistar as well as Vladimir picks. But for the side of Snake, Mordekaiser, he's not going into the bottom lane with Hutier. He's going into the mid lane, Raz. That is Maestro playing mid lane Mordekaiser with a Shen Darius bottom lane for Snake. Guorguo playing that on the bottom side of the map, similar to what we saw from Faker in the LCK.
Yeah, this is heavily practiced for the team, so it seems like Snake are trying to run a heavy kill lane bottom lane, which should be successful. But the most important thing is the fact that Mordekaiser mid lane is great because he doesn't lose experience when someone else comes to his lane. So that means that we're going to be seeing a whole lot of farming coming out of SOFM. SOFM is right now heavily clearing his own jungle. I'm surprised he didn't start with Raptors, because he can go Raptors, Red, go straight mid and clear this wave. So it hasn't been done the best just yet because Maestro's getting pushed in, but ideally this should be a 2v1 lane.
I mean, all he wants to do is hold that wave just off the turret, Raz. Make sure that he keeps the minions here so that when SOFM is ready to come and collect that wave, he can do so. So for now, just playing it, sitting back, relaxing, waiting for Olaf to jump in, and SOFM's going to do just that. And we talked about SOFM how this should be his patch, Raz. He loves the chaos. He's really good at innovating, really good at adapting to the meta as well, and always has his unique playstyle. So it makes sense with a meta where junglers are such a high priority, he would start to shine. Hasn't been the case so far, especially in their first match against OMG.
And that's what surprised me, the fact that in their first set versus OMG, they were the ones that were getting trampled by the meta, that they themselves weren't adapting, that the Sejuani pick came across when Sejuani gets absolutely thrashed by these bruiser junglers that can stick onto you, like the Camille's, the Graves, not so much of a bruiser, but he can very much stick on you nonetheless, and the Xin Zhaos. So now he's adapting, and even though it's still an Olaf, it means that the team themselves are formulating compositions that have already been played in the LCK, and now they're utilizing it versus FPX.
Well, this was one of those compositions with Darius in the bottom lane. LWX already going incredibly low. Ignite is ticking. One more tick will be enough, and it is. First blood picked up by Hutier on Shen.
Yeah, it's a kill lane, my friends. Darius and Shen, you get taunted, you are going down. That's a CC train if I've ever seen one.
And that's what you expect from this lane matchup. Seems like Guorguo is just the better Darius player. Maestro, yes, he is going to be on Mordekaiser, but it is similar to a support pick, just staying in that mid lane and technically supporting SOFM. Guorguo there, he's able to punish that lane, was already able to zone away FPX bottom lane quite well and gets a kill for his team.
And I would like to say that this is the first chance that we get to see a team that has definitely looked abroad. So this is something that we've seen from SKT. Faker ran the same pick, runs the Darius, goes to the bottom lane, and they run a 2v2 lane. So here we go, CC train, LWX, I'm sorry buddy, Ignite got buffed, extra damage coming through, and it's enough to get the kill.
What we didn't see is how this swap is going to go, because in the LCK when we saw Faker play the Darius in the mid lane, in the bottom lane, he did eventually move into the mid lane once he picked up a few kills and was able to get a nice lead in that bottom side of the map. Potentially we could see Maestro do that exact same swap. He can move down to bottom lane, be supported by Hutier, with Guorguo going back into that mid lane later on. You can already see our observers, they've decided to swap those two champions on the scoreboard to make sure they can move to those positions of the map nice and easy.
Yeah, you gotta get it right. So honestly, the question is probably what moves this game along? Because for me, my eyes were on SOFM to begin with, and it's still on that lane because that's going to be the lane that's going to constantly have priority no matter what. Cool is going to have a problem dealing with two people in his lane, and Shinyi needs to farm up because he's already far behind. A level behind, very soon going to be 2 levels behind. He needs to keep up and try to defend what's going to be a dive in the bottom lane. I would say, yeah, just going to be I was thinking maybe dive top lane. No, it's going to stick to towards the bottom lane. So that's where my focus is. The fact that SOFM is going to try to heavily invade, try and get as much experience to the point where Sinyi cannot handle him and has to look to try and respond to a possible dive.
Because look at the advantage that SOFM already has over Sinyi. It's 63 CS to 30 Raz. And yes, this is not technically Sinyi's fault. SOFM has had such a huge boost from the farm he gets in the mid lane, but we're going to talk about bottom lane first. Headbutt comes out to knock Guorguo back away. LPX still takes a ton of damage from that crowd control that comes out of Snake, and this is what we expect from the bottom lane time and time again.
And this wave is awful for LWX. He knows it. He's incredibly low. He needs to base. It's gotten to that point
Oh.
where this is such a major advantage based off that trade alone that SOFM and Maestro can do this.
So Snake are winning the bottom side of the map, but now they're going into the jungle as well. That was a 2-level advantage for SOFM, but it's a 3-man advantage for FunPlus Phoenix. Maestro's in trouble, taken out by Senior. They try to chase for SOFM, but he pops the Ragnarok, is able to get away.
L-Shot Colo, Crisp played it perfectly because at that point the assumption's been made. LWX and Crisp have to base. But Crisp says, why do I have to base? I'm not the one that took the damage in the bottom lane. I'm going to make my time worthwhile and move to the mid lane because it seems like SOFM is overconfident.
It's smart play coming out from FunPlus Phoenix, and quite frankly, the one they needed to make, because SOFM, 2 levels ahead, already has a 30 CS lead over Senior. The only way you're going to win that skirmish is if you have a man advantage, and they did so by bringing the Alistar up.
Yeah, and I think that was devastating for Snake because that was a great opportunity to not only get the Raptors, but the play was going to be to go bottom lane anyways. So that cuts off time, that gives time to LWX and Crisp, and cuts off a lot of time for Snake. They have to make that advantage in mid lane again.
Well, SOFM's first move into the jungle doesn't work out. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, he put to
no.
sleep by Cool. Paddle Star coming out, but he fights away! Oh no, Cool, what a prediction! Jumps over the wall as well. The veteran finds SOFM, gets another kill.
Cool is an excellent investigator. The man said, wait a second, where did you go? He has flash, he has to be over the wall. There's only one wall in front of me, I'm gonna get there.
Oh no, Hoodia now jumps over the wall, but Chris says, not today, buddy. Slams the ground, gets a kill for himself. FPX, they're not here to play, Raz, they're here to win.
All right, I'm 7 minutes into the game, and I feel like we should already award an MVP to Chris.
We need to calm down a little bit, though.
Maybe,
Raz. 7
maybe,
minutes into the game, we've been yelling quite a bit.
There was some pent-up frustration that we had in the time off, so now we get to see this play happen. What the heck happened? So let's see. So Hoodia gets the kill. Wonderful. Don't even know how he was that low to begin with, but he's going to have to pay an iron price. The man gets hit over the wall. I love this cow.
Chris is amazing. He's crispy right now, Raz. Moved into mid lane, so we get a couple of kills there. Now in the bottom lane, just surprises Hoodia. I mean, that's what happens, Raz. You're a support. You jump in as the AD carry for your team. You don't know what hits you when the other team support decides that, you know, now you're the focus point of that part of the map. But it's just been fighting back and forth. Skirmishes all across the map. Now we're looking in the top lane where Flandre as well as Gimgoon have just been farming against one another. Flandre, though, in some trouble. Yes, he's a level up, but he's been trying to proxy farm against Gimgoon. Cool's jumping up as well. Throws the sleepy trouble bubble. Not going to put Flandre to sleep. Flashes away from that gank. Somehow gets out alive. 2 turrets deep.
And here's the thing. Cool and Sinyi, since they were doing blue, they were like, maybe we have the time to mess with the Singed and get the kill. That's time wasted. That's what Singed won. If he ain't dying, then you're losing something on the opposite side of the map. And you would say that, oh, it's just a Cloud Dragon. Actually, that's a Mordekaiser who's past level 6. That is a dragon that he now owns.
No, Cloud Dragon did get buffed last split, Raz. Now you get some of that out-of-combat movement speed during combat itself. But as you said, it might just be a Cloud Dragon, but it's a scary Cloud Dragon when it's on Snake Esports side of the map. He doesn't even go to sleep, Raz. That dragon doesn't need any sleep.
This is the only time that he's actually really alive. Why would he sleep when he's only starting his life?
What? He was alive in the Dragon Pit before Snake killed him.
Nah, this is a new dragon.
He's a zombie dragon, Raz.
He's not that pesky Cloud Dragon. He's a dragon. He has his own life, man.
So what dragon is this if he's not a Cloud Dragon?
It's a ghosty.
Well, he's a dead dragon now. Snake seemed like they wanted to try and push him into the mid lane, try and get that first turret, but easily dealt with by FPX.
So this is what's kind of rough with Mordekaiser compositions that have no range to it, right? Because you would love to utilize the dragon and start to siege with it, but where's your sieging potential when you don't have any range? So for them, it comes down to the fact that if they have the dragon, they need to look to force a dive. They need to force the enemy team to respect that potential. Otherwise, the dragon's not going to mean too much.
And that seems scary for Snake later on in the match as well, because when we hit 20-30 minutes, if the game is still even between FPX as well as Snake, if FPX get into a sieging situation, they've got Zoe, who is decent at sieging, and LWX, who is not an AD carry, but he still picks up ability power, still has a bit of range, so they can poke at turrets, whereas Snake, they literally have to be on top of them, or have Rift Herald, or have a dragon from Mordekaiser's passive to do that.
Yeah, and to be honest, when it comes to the raw statistic of Mordekaiser, Mordekaiser's been played 3 times in the past in the LPL this split, and has lost all those games. And if we look towards other regions, I've seen a Mordekaiser in LCK, there's one in OPL as well, and the win rate is just god-awful, because when it gets to the team fights themselves, Mordekaiser has incredibly bad range and has no sticking power. That's just facts. She needs other champions to be able to make it work. LWX needs to get the hell out of there.
Poor Vladimir.
He's been having a bad time. But the problem with or at least Mordekaiser is just that. His team fights are poor because he needs other champions to keep that champion still. And so he needs to essentially make use of the stats that he have early on.
Well, then do Snake have those champions to keep FPX locked in place? Because they do have 4 other melee champions, which means they should have some more crowd control for themselves, but it doesn't quite look like they have the engage potential that a Mordekaiser would want.
Yeah, when they start grouping up, they have the Singed and Shen, and Singed and Shen is going to be incredibly crucial. They're not going to be major team fighters, but it's going to basically pick off somebody. So if they find Cool, they can pick them up, toss them into the Singed Taunt, that's good enough. But if they get into a real large-scale team fight, then they're going to have issues going up against Ornn, Alistar, and Vladimir.
So far, it's all been about LPX having issues in this bottom lane, because Hutia as well as Squawko have been keeping him locked down. He's died twice, but he's still keeping even with farm against Squawko.
I hate to alarm you.
What are you going to alarm me with?
Olaf went back to base.
Yes, he got a banner of command for himself.
Yes, he did. That's all he got. So literally, one-track mind. He's like, banner of command. Before it dies, rest in peace, my love. I'm getting a banner. So the initial worry that I have of not having the ability to siege, they decided that's going to be resolved immediately.
Raz, they've got 2. They've
Are
got
you
3.
kidding me?
There's 3 banner of commands.
They're all
There's about to be another one.
Banner.
So far 3 been picked up by Snake. Looks like Hutia's going to pick up 1 for himself as well. Small fight in that mid lane. Teleport was used, but immediately cancelled. That's how you do it. We're going. There was a game mode that was released, Raz, where all you had to do to win was just build 5 banner of commands. I can't remember what it was.
I think that was like the last patch.
The last patch? I was talking about a fun game mode that Riot released. There was one. I don't know what it is anymore, but it seems like banner of command. What do we have? ZZ Portal next?
That could be. I mean, I don't even know what this is some nonsense scrimming. So like whoever scrims Snake, I am absolutely sorry for you that this had to be in your game.
Are you sorry for FunPlus Phoenix? Because it's in their game right now.
Yeah, they need to deal with it.
Well, they're going to try. Meanwhile, Flandre's going into a fight against Gimgoon. Ultimate comes out, locks him down. One more attack might be enough. Flashes forward, but gets Stand United coming out from Hutia. Decides not to turn around and go for the fight, but does burn a flash coming out from Gimgoon.
Really well done. The fact that they pulled Hutia away from the bottom lane when they were looking to get this tower. And they still may be able to get it. But not for some time. But if Shen was there, that tower would have been down. So actually, well done from Gimgoon, being able to force that out of the Snake.
And Flandre goes back to base. He's able to pick up a couple more items for himself. Swiftly Boots picked up. His banner of command has been refreshed as well. Everyone from the side of Snake Esports, sorry, 3 members.
I'm telling you right now.
Minion Dematerializer as well, Raz. So it seems like they've got their pushing strategy set. And unfortunately for FPX, they only have 1 Minion Dematerializer left, and that's on Gimgoon.
This is going to be painful because they're going to have 5 banners. It's going to take some time for Maestro to be able to get it for himself. But Hudia is on that train. 3 is already out there. So you have a Vladimir, Zoe. The only one that could really handle it is Sinyi. So this is going to be god-awful on the side of FPX. They basically should just bid their towers goodbye and really focus on these fights.
Well, they've already said goodbye to 1. Bottom lane outer turret falls naturally due to the push that came out from that lane. And top lane as well. Seems like even though it's a 5 melee composition for Snake, the first few turrets are going to fall perfectly fine. And you know what, Raz? I'm dreaming of a perfect world right now.
Give it to me.
5 banner of commands. You pick up Rift Herald. You go get yourself a dragon as well. Mordekaiser brings that into mid lane. You just drop 5 banner of commands. You drop your Rift Herald. You get a dragon pushing as well. I think that's a good game. At 20 minutes, you do that, that's over.
You know what? You know one person that would have been fabulous at casting this game? Pastry Time and Papa Smithy, because it feels like that composition where you have Heimerdinger just all into one lane, just push.
I don't know.
Push these towers down and get the Nexus. That's the game here.
I think you're missing out on Max Atlas Anderson. He would love this.
He definitely would.
Like, this is his dream game right now. Banner of Command, 5 melee compositions, Mordekaiser. Come on, Raz.
Well, sorry, I feel bad for you already because it seems like FPX have caught on to all of this and they're picking it up for themselves.
Yeah, make sure to get the Rift Herald off the map. Grab it for themselves. Try and claw back some of the gold lead that Snake have taken. 27,000 to 25,000 gold, a 2,000 gold lead for Snake. And technically, a turret in their pocket if they can use this Rift Herald effectively. We can check them with the other items as well, Raz. Seems like we have very similar builds, very traditional builds, I should say, coming out from the side of FPX. From top lane, picking up tanky items, we have the Warriors Enchant coming out of Xin Zhao nice and early. Luden's being picked up by Zoe, and Hextech and Protobelt coming out from LWX. Side of Snake just been all of that banner so far, so bits and pieces for the rest of their components, throwing banner after banner in the mid lane. Chris is not happy, Raz.
I wouldn't be either.
Headbutts the minion away, takes the aggro as well.
Now, my question for Cool is I wonder if he ends up going Lich Bane with this one. It's a few questions of if you just go straight through the AP route of double magic penetration. Seems like Flunder's actually going to get pushed down here. It's going to be rough for him. Okay, that's fine.
No knockup comes out of Gimgoon, so Flandre just dances in a circle and goes back to base.
But my question pertaining about Cool's build is important because that just means how fast are they comfortable to team fight. That could mean the difference of losing inner towers or just being able to defend those and start forcing Snake off of him and start losing, or at least getting teamfight wins. Because we already talked about the fact that FPX still have a strong teamfight composition. So even though this cheese is happening from Snake, it can only net you so much gold before you start respecting the teamfight of FPX.
Wouldn't Snake be happy if FPX pick a teamfight though? We mentioned how Mordekaiser wants those champions to keep the opposite team locked down so he can deal damage, the damage that he needs, but the other team's going to come to him. He should be pretty happy about that, right?
That's fair. I think it just starts with how FPX are going to be starting these fights because they're technically non-committal. Zoe, it's all going to be starting from Zoe if she can get the proper Sleepy Trouble Bubbles to really get poked to start those fights. And for Gimgoon, if his Horn comes up, then he can choose whether he can follow up. So
True.
It's fair enough to say that Snake should be comfortable on waiting for the fights to come to them. But it's about the setting, because maybe someone's dead. Maybe someone loses 40% HP before that even happens.
Well, we heard from Frostgreen earlier that now that it's a much faster paced game with the current meta, that 1 or 2 team fights could be the win it all.
Yep.
It seems like FPX, they're going to try and look for these team fights. They picked up 3 stopwatches with their keystones for 3 of their members, only 1 being picked up for the side of Snake. That could be hugely impactful for them, the first or the second fight if it goes well.
Are we getting 3? How many do we get?
That's 2 Banner of Command minions pushing onto this turret, both melee, slapping away at these champions. But seeing as well as Chris, they're doing a good job. They're dealing with these minions perfectly fine. And yes, Snake, they've got control of the map so far, Raz. Singe is pushing in the bottom lane. We had Banner of Commands being thrown into the top lane, drawing LWX up there. He has teleport and Vladimir, so he's perfectly okay with this.
Yep.
But after they drop the Banner of Command minions, FPX just hold it off the turret. There's no ranged champions, no poke abilities come out from Snake to stop FPX from clearing these.
Yeah, so that's the major worry. Maybe they start moving these banners to opposite lanes, right? They have to start thinking about a creative solution rather than grouping up because they don't have the necessary siege.
Okay.
So I would say put a banner top lane, put a banner bottom lane. Force these champions to actually answer to these waves, and then you can force a dive mid lane because you don't necessarily need a banner to do that. So there we go. That's the first banner top lane.
Make it stop!
Now, someone, por favor, please go to the bottom lane, put a banner there, and then you can now look towards mid lane a lot more easily because it's going to be FPX that's not grouping. That'll just be at the very most 3 people on this tower.
Well, FPX is going to try and make a counterattack of their own. They drop Rift Herald in the mid lane. That's going to try and get a charge down. Snake might be able to collapse and stop it from doing so.
Okay, so, oh, never mind. They moved Mordekaiser back to the bottom lane. So I was wondering if Mordekaiser got his banner of command just yet, but they decided to move that over there.
He's picked up a blasting one last I checked, so it seems like he's not going to go for a banner of command just yet. So there should only be 4
Okay,
from the side of Snake.
reasonable.
But Baron's going to come online in the next 14 minutes. Raz, we've seen skirmishes here and there, mostly during the laning phase, but no real team fights between FPX as well as Snake. Dragons have been taken by Snake so far. It's going to be Cloud, Cloud, Cloud. So we're not going to see them use those the first 2 clouds effectively. They'll have another one coming in a minute if they can actually take the objective, but besides holding on to the game and picking up a 2,000 gold lead, creating a stalemate at 20 minutes into the match, we haven't seen too much of this from Snake.
Yeah, this is rather unimpressive because of that. So I would say that it could have been much better for them. I think that this is a cool strategy to run for a game 1. But because of the missteps that they made earlier on, and sure, this is a low kill game, but those kills were actually very important. That was the difference between getting the bottom lane tower much earlier on and being able to move that mid lane. And those kills meant that Snake were much slower. So yeah, you're right. Gold advantage is not that much. And FPX responded properly to being able to hold this mid lane tower with the targets that they were able to accrue for themselves. So actually, now that it's going to be a Baron game, FPX should be comfortable now, especially with the mid lane outer tower still being out.
I mean, especially with Vladimir scaling up as well.
Yeah.
He's picked up 2 solid items for himself, the Spellbinder as well as the Hextech Proto Belt are complete. He even went for the support item in the bottom lane, so he's going to be able to pick up a little bit of extra gold every single time Chris kills a minion with his Targon's Brace, and was able to do so throughout the laning phase. So he's going to be scaling, and I think that's what FPX are trying to do.
So what I loved here is the fact that they did put a Banner of Command bottom lane. They're going to be able to take this dragon. So
Again.
Singed is going to be the one that forces the Vladimir to stay there. Singed should be able to move mid with his team. That is a numbers advantage, and especially with the Shurelias that unfortunately he just used for whatever reason. He could go mid with his team. This would be a very easy dive. But it's not happening. He's going back to base. So this is just poor execution on what would have been a very easy mid lane tower force.
And Maestro is just throwing the dragon at this turret.
My God.
It's getting
Look at
beaten
the-
up here.
Look at the physicality. That's a man who does bicep curls.
The dragon?
Yes. No, the Alistar.
The Alistar. Chris,
Yes.
I was like, what were you talking about, Raz? We're talking about dragon.
Yeah,
He's getting
these-
beaten up, and you said he does bicep curls.
Yeah, he literally pounded the ground and the dragon went up. Who does that? What the hell? Anyways,
Chris, he's had a great game so far. I
Yes.
wouldn't be surprised if he could make Baron fly across the map at this point.
that'd be great. So, but on a serious note, Snake have not been utilizing this comp properly, and the coach is probably pissed off in the back because that dragon, once again, already hit on this pretty hard. That mid lane tower at this point is not going to go down. If they faltered on that one 2 times in a row, this tower is going to keep still, and it's going to be a Baron game. I just feel like Snake are going to be suddenly pushed into a fight on Baron that they cannot win.
Why do you think that they can't win the fight here? Because FPX and Snake haven't had a big team fight yet.
Yeah.
What is the breaking point for FPX that allows them to actually win a team fight over Baron?
Breaking fight for this team right now, I would say comes into Void Staff or Cool, because even though it seems like a skirmish happening here, gotta get out of there.
He's fine. Look at him go. But Hoodia, sorry, wants to jump back in. I said Flandre because I saw, hey, Shen, must be Flandre, right?
Yeah, but I would say that Void Staff, perhaps Morellonomicon, just items that have enough magic penetration that it's really meaningful for Guokwa and Hoodia. Because if Cool can be able to deal enough poke damage on that, suddenly it's so much difficult for this team to start really forcing these objectives.
Oh, but Chris has been flung back as a team. Headbutt goes down to Flandre, knocking him back, but that's going to be the first casualty. Alistar's going to fall. Those bicep curls didn't do too much for him. They've got a ghost of Chris now. That man did his bicep curls, and he's looking to go for a fight against his team. Gimgoon, where did that one horn go? You meant to throw it at the enemies there, but 1 kill, 2 kills picked up by Snake. That's the team fight they wanted against FPX.
Yeah, just one pick. It seems like FPX were overconfident in the fact that they thought they had SOFM, so they thought they had got one mistake down on Snake. Didn't happen, it turned on them. Now Snake seems to have a Baron for themselves.
They're moving everybody towards this Baron pit as well. 2 members in the mid lane for FPX. They currently have LWX split pushing on the bottom side of the map. He wants to teleport in as well. But Snake already getting this Baron down to about half health. Cool wants to jump in the pit, doesn't get too much poke damage down. Gimgoon wants to try and charge him where he can. Flandre flips him back out. 2,000 hit points on Baron. LBX is trying to jump in. Cool wants to see if he can go for the steal. Jumps in. Portal's not going to be enough. Taken away. Olaf gets the Baron for Snake. Cool's trying to gun down Hoodia, but the rest of FPX are trying to collapse as well. LBX can't find any kills at the moment. Hoodia finally going to fall inside the Baron pit. SOFM, that's the wrong way. Tries to chase down Cool. Portal jump over the wall. Not going to do too much, but it's a 1 kill trade for FPX. 1 for 1, but still Baron buff going to Snake.
Exactly. See, now it wasn't pretty, but you're right. The result is exactly what Snake wanted. They got the mid lane skirmish, they got the Baron, and now it's going to be so much easier to start converting these towers across. So really well done from Snake to force FPX in this position. Now, understandably, for FPX, this is a desperate situation. You only have 3 champions, and Cool doesn't have much mana to his name to keep this up. So if you can't keep this up and then not take enough damage, at this point in time, they're really just looking for a Hail Mary steal on Baron. And it was good for Snake. The moment Cool was popped out of that Baron pit, they were able to nail it down and just take the easy kills for themselves.
Easy fight. Baron picked up nice and easy as well. Now, Raz, that siege got a whole lot stronger for Snake Esports. You can already see 1 Banner of Command cannon minion pushing for them in the mid lane. That's Thomas the Tank right there. He's going to keep charging away at these turrets, keep chipping away. Do FPX look for a fight here?
Yes, because it's not just one Thomas the Tank. We can probably continue to name them. He's going to have a few more friends. So at some point, they're going to start really knocking down in the, I would say, inhibitor door. And you can't lose a bottom lane inhib. You can't lose a mid lane inhib.
Well, second banner of command has been used. Houtier uses it in the mid lane. Meanwhile, Flandre is able to take down a turret on the bottom side of the map all by himself. Another banner of command is going to come back up shortly, and they should be able to use that too. But seems like FPX are holding on to most of the turrets. 5,000 gold down against Snake.
It just seems like as the game goes on, even though I was initially trying to say, well, Void Staff for cool, that's going to be the breaking point to really look for a fight. Now with how much gold Snake has accrued for themselves, they're starting to just nail down on magic resist. Each and every one of these members have enough magic resist that it's going to be fine going up against Cool's Poke. It's going to be fine going up against the all-in of LWX, and they don't have much damage outside of those two members.
Every single turret is slowly falling here, Rez. Snake have found a way to make this siege work, and they're moving towards the base of FunPlus Phoenix. I mean, there was a thread on Reddit a couple of days ago that Riot has made every single game a Gigabyte Marines game, Raz.
Yep.
If you cover the nameplates, I think they'll both be Gigabyte Marines, I should say. SOFM used to work with their coach, Syndicate. Syndicate would be so proud this is happening. And he'd be so proud of SOM having the most CS in this match. He has 300 CS for his team. Snake are finally going to try and break into the base as well. Flandre going fairly low. Maestro's in trouble as well. Gimgo's looking for a fight. SOFM gets the first kill. Picks up Ragnarok, tries to charge out. Gorgor wants to pop off, wants to get more kills for his squad, but has to back away. The full melee composition is going fairly low. Cool is trying to chase them down, but they do get back to base, and they take a base turret with them.
Oh, maybe Cool can get this one for himself. No, he healed up quite ridiculously. But to your point, that was the time that they were taking their last stand. And that was incredibly ineffective. You're right about them maybe hitting up Tinnikun on WeChat. The information went across. Hey, you know what? We've got our Gigabyte Marine strategy. At least you can use it. They're using it, and it's looking pretty damn good. How you feel about that?
You know, I think Gigabyte Marines saw this patch. They called up Tinnikun and were like, I know that every other team is trying to poach you over now, but we'll add a couple more zeros to your contract. We need you to help us with this meta.
Check your bank account.
Check your bank account. The Snake have done well. We already talked about how they are innovators. We didn't see too much from them against OMG, and that shocked us. We thought, this is strange. This seems like a meta where Snake would thrive, but it wasn't the case against OMG. Now showing one of their strategies here against FunPlus Phoenix. Yeah. But aside of FunPlus Phoenix, though, that's the main team I really want to talk about here, because we harped about Snake's strategy. We talked about all the things they can do as they pick up another Dragon for themselves. But FPX, this was a team last split we said they are going to be an early game squad. They're going to be ones that take the fights as early as they possibly can.
Yeah, and it's these kind of compositions that's going to gate them, because you're right in the sense that they're a team that wants to be able to win the early game, but they're also a team that really looks towards these later game carries of Gimgoon and LWX. But they ain't getting to the point because it means that you do have to look towards other champions. You look towards other strategies, and it's Snake that is doing it. So maybe in game 2 we'll see something. Maybe that's on LWX to pick a Yasuo perhaps.
And Raz, there's even an Ohm Wrecker being picked up by SOFM as another full-blown teamfight breaks out between the two squads. Cool! First person to fall. SOFM gets that kill. He pops fairly low. Siggy tries to follow through, but Maestro's got his back. Gets the revenge. Takes one more down. FPX still holding on to 3 of their members. Snake, 4 strong, pushing more into the base. Guac pulls 2 back. Gets 1 execute. Come on and slam! LWX forced to use the stopwatch. Udia piles on in as well. One by one, the fun stops for FunPlus Phoenix as LWX is the last member alive, desperately trying to defend against the onslaught of Snake Esports.
And just as you'd expect, they're looking down at this Vladimir like, do we want to touch this? Do we actually want to deal with the Vladimir? Let's check our watches. You know what? Cool's coming up in about 10 seconds. Let's not. Let's actually play it cool. Let's play it relaxed. We could come right back because we already have a bottom lane enabled. We can go for the next one.
Well, Snake are looking to try and finish this game right here, right now, Raz. They went for that push. They got a great team fight. This is what took place.
So who's actually going to be dealing damage on the side of FPX? That's my question. So they nailed down that it was going to be Cool, so they immediately jump on top of him. And even though Cool does enough damage to SOFM to make it that he is in critical HP, the fight's already done at that point because you've already put their main player, their main character on ice. So it's very easy from this point forward for FPX to just kind of get steamrolled.
I've never seen a less threatening Vladimir than I did in that last team fight, Raz. He got maybe 6, 7 spell rotations off against the full bruiser composition of Snake. Didn't do much at all. He sustained through most of the damage. He healed back up 1,000 health from his ultimate. But not much damage coming out against these bruisers from the FPX lineup. And they have fallen behind by about 8,000 gold 30 minutes into this match.
Yeah, at this point, Vladimir is just trying to look towards the 6th item. He needs to be able to deal that much damage because, of course, we already talked about the magic resist being stockpiled by Snake. They don't have enough time, though, because the game will just be decided on this Baron. So for now, they just need to be able to nut up and go up against it.
Well, Snake are going to try and take another Baron for themselves. FPX looking to try and stop this. Teleporter is available for Gimgoon. They're trying to attack on the right side of blue buff, but SFM jumps back in. Chris tries to go in for a play, gets a good knock-up, pops his ultimate. Flandre already knocked down to half health. Maestro forced to use his own stopwatch, but meanwhile Darius is low as well, but they kill Chris. They get one member of FPX, but it's only the support. Mordecai is going to fall off the back of that, and somehow FPX win a team by Flandre. He killed the turret! Raz, he killed the turret they were teleporting to! They just have to stop the recalls, stop the ports right now, and Snake will win game 1.
Okay, it's going to be just the Singe doing this, so I don't know, man. I feel like somebody's got to come
He's got a banner of command. He's got super minions as well. They're on top of the Nexus. Vandre is chipping away at this turret. They have killed everyone else from Snake. They tried to stop FPS from getting back in, but like you said, Raz, it was just one man, one lonely man against the Nexus. And that Nexus is still taking a beating.
At the very least, he did his job at stopping the entirety of FPX going towards Baron. Now, they're going to do it anyways, but now they've hit a large cost.
Flandre realized he should have stuck around and tried to kill that Nexus because the minions did some work at the end there, but Snake, as you said, stopped the ports, but it gives FPX a chance to take Baron, reset the map. The Nexus survives with about a quarter of health there.
So here's the worry, because look at Cool's positioning. This is a fantastic position because he's immediately on Maestro, and the team has already just jumped right on top of Darius. Darius cannot survive for long enough because you don't want the bleed to stockpile so he can get free damage off his ultimate. So the moment Snake has realized that it was a lost fight, you see the TP coming through from Flandre, fast on his feet to be able to make a play, a poor play, a positive.
It takes down 2 turrets on the back of that though, and they're still trying to go for more picks. He gets flung backwards! Has to use his own stopwatch! He's way too low! Maestro knocks him out of the park, gets the first kill for Snake! Quarkwall wants to come on and slam as well! LWX is gone! FPX put up a great last stand at their Nexus! They picked up Baron for themselves, but the Snake pick, Raz! They slithered in. They found a pick a red buff.
Yep.
Now Cool's trying to run for the hills. Snake are going to try and charge towards the Nexus.
It was that one moment that FPX tried to have a tea break. You ain't taking a break. The moment they think that they can relax.
How do you take a break with this? Cobra's attacking you, Raz.
You can't. That's the answer. Short and simple.
No breaks for FPX. Snake play the long game. They had, I'm going to say, an interesting macro play. It works out for them. 5 melee champions. Creating havoc in the Rift. Taking down FPX in game 1. That was beautiful to watch.
Now, this is why Riot has taken away Banner of Command. I'm sorry. This is why it's happening. It was happening in Korea solo queue. It was happening in NA solo queue. It was just literally happening across the world. Snake is one that's saying before it leaves, before it bids us goodbye, we're getting a free win off of this. So they see multiple AP champions, they see the Vladimir, and they're like, all right, let's lock it in. That's as simple as that. It's rough to see this kind of game happen because it was literally just FPX put against the corner and say, you have to fight us now.
Knocked into the corner, but there was no way for them to fight their way out. They got Baron, had a good last team fight, but Snake stuck to the plan, found a pick for themselves, made sure they were still aggressive, win the game. And, I mean, you say that Riot's taking it away. I still think that Snake are going to try and innovate with other strategies. There's still Z0 Portal. They picked up Own Wrecker, Raz. When was the last time you've seen Own Wrecker in competitive play?
Yeah, that's fair. But for Banner of Command, that one is simply that it's going to be very difficult for mages. I suppose with the change that it had, ADs are going to have problems as well. But it was specifically still very strong versus mages, so that's why I love the fact that we got to see it. And I love the fact that we got to see Snake also just say that we are still the mad scientists of the league. That we, even though the set 1 versus OMG wasn't too pretty, that we were still ready, or at least still cooking something. So it's great to see them do this in game 1. I want to see what they can do in game 2.
Oh, we got to see another match where there were absolutely no AD carries to be seen anywhere on the map, Raz, and that's another one that we see here today in the LPL, but still a best-of-3 series between FPX as well as Snake. Let's send it back to the analyst desk to break down game 1.
It's like as you're staring at a picture, and the longer you look at the picture, the more things that you see are wrong with it. We had 4 Banner of Commands, 3 Cloud Dragons, 2 supports, Hudier and Maestro play. Those are 2 support players, as well as 2 supports in Mordekaiser and Shin, and then 1 Ohm Wrecker. When was the last time you've ever seen an Ohm Wrecker in competitive play? I don't even think he used it either.
No, I've never seen it. Actually, I had to look up on LowWiki what it actually
What
did.
does this do?
I thought it was just like a gold sink or something,
Okay.
you know?
I have been corrected. He used it on a Nexus Tower, so that's in the books. History has been made by Snake once again. And if you haven't seen Snake, this team came in 2015 in the LPL alongside all of the Samsung blue and white members, blasted everyone during the regular split, and were actually the inventors of the teleport smite. So if you remember how that ruined the meta the last time around, this was the team that did it, and they're ruining metas again. Clement, walk me through this.
All right, so the big fundamental you have to look here is that why can you get away with not picking any range champions? You usually need range champions for something, and the reason you need that for is for tower sieging and actually ending the game, pushing things in. And the answer that Snake gave here is that, hey, we can get away with that with support items. Like, there's no reason to run range champions anymore, and we can just win the team fights based on the constitution of these melee champions.
There's actually a great quote that goes up with that. On the Euphoria podcast with Maxlore says, the problem is not the Master Yi. The problem is the support. Yi has been around forever. What is making these combos so strong are these support items, are these support champions. These champions where you can basically put no gold in them, and they still have such a massive impact on the game. And in this case, that would be our Mordekaiser and our Shin for this game. And we had also triple relics, I believe.
Exactly. Triple relics funnels so much gold for these melee champions early on. And I do want to point out that, just like Raz said, I don't think this is something that they'll try every single game, but they will try it against teams that run champions that have that are more fragile, don't have as much sustained damage, but are better tempo champions. So I think FPX kind of walked themselves into this trap by picking the Xin Zhao and picking the Zoe, thinking that they were going to snowball this early game, and then running into banners by 15 minutes and realizing that they didn't have any presence on the map. And the really cool thing about this comp is that we actually never seen Olaf being the one who's all the gold is funneled into. Because usually when we see a Mordekaiser, it's the Train Your Dragon composition with the Shyvana, because she's a hyper-scaling late-game carry that goes really well with gold. But what they did here was they just built support items with that gold.
Yeah, because the thing is, during this game, we were actually having kind of a crisis moment of how are Snake going to kill anyone? Not only do 5 melee champions who are building all these support items not necessarily have the damage, but it's also going to be very difficult for them to ever engage on FPX composition, which was solved because they got 3 Cloud Dragons. And we were just like, oh man, it's Cloud, it's not Triple Infernal. Oh god, it's Cloud Dragon.
Yeah.
They can run at 8% movement speed towards anyone.
Yeah, that was the moment that we realized, wait a minute, this composition is actually going to work. So that's 9% in combat movement speed, and then you think about it, there's also Singe running around with Rylai's, with Swifties, Reverie, and the Dead Man's Plate. So they're 100% going to get that engage, and I also think that in this game, I think FPX actually did hand it to them once into the mid lane, and that really started to snowball into the Baron. The Baron was the big objective that an all-melee teamfight team comp was going to look for.
Because that was the concern. It was that Snake would have to be able to find a team fight in that mid lane, and they did get it, grabbing the hold of the Alistar Ghost, using the Ghost as also a tanking method for the tower. But it led to a 24-minute Baron, because I believe that if Snake's composition hadn't had the stars aligned, that they wouldn't have been able to execute on that. It's still incredibly difficult to execute on. So you say that they'll probably use this once in a while to cheese people, but like, how often are we thinking that Snake are going to do something like this?
We're basically thinking about looking at team comps that can't match them in terms of a 5v5. We're talking about this is the meat grinder composition. If you want to survive, you need a team composition with AoE CC to knock people back. You need sustain to go through that damage. And you also need very high sustained damage yourself to get back to actually snowball the game the other way. And if you're lacking in any of those facilities, then this type of team composition will run you over.
Okay, well, you heard it there. Game 1, they got run over, but we'll see in Game 2 if FPX can bounce back or if Snake will slither away in the Snake Pit right after this.